Is stating the obvious to say that if you really want to understand the future and really be able to get a handle on the future, you need to study the past. Since I'm a product man and since I'm very interested right now in disruptive technologies and the direction of certain things like that in the world, I pay a lot of attention to what I consider to be the biggest things that have changed the world, that have been really disruptive in the world in my lifetime, which is really long, but let's just say since World War II. So here's my list of the things I believe have dramatically changed our lives. Number one, jet passenger planes. People don't think about it because they think about the beginning of the airplane, but it was jet passenger planes in the 50s that really changed the size of the world. Number two, home air conditioning. Nothing has changed the demographics of the United States and other countries around the world more than air conditioning, as people were able to move to places like Phoenix and Texas, Southern California, Florida, places that would have, I don't know, basically uninhabitable until air conditioning. Then we've got ballpoint pens. Did you ever think about how big a deal that was to go from not having to fill your fountain pen or dip it and getting away from all of that? Then you've got microwave ovens. I wouldn't eat. I would have cold food at this point in my life if it weren't for microwave ovens, but they've changed so much. Computers, that's an obvious one. Don't have to explain that one. Then there's the internet, but also the big piece of that internet was email. That eliminated secretaries and stenographers and et cetera, et cetera. Then, of course, smartphones, that's an obvious one. And now we have Chat GPT. I'd love to hear if you have some additional items you'd throw in that list of things that you believe were so disruptive that major jobs were changed, major changes in the way that people live, where they live, et cetera. Maybe you would like to add a few more to that list. Well, these are all going to pale in comparison to humanoid robots. And of course, Tesla is going to be at the forefront of the humanoid robot revolution. Earlier, now, you know, I probably do, I don't know, 2 or 3 videos per week on Optimus and on the future of humanoid robots. But today, I don't know, the 2 that I put up are not getting nearly as many people looking at them as I think they should. And so I'm going to just say right now, the first one I did this morning was with Scott Walter. Well, you're saying, well, you know, I've already heard from Scott Walter 15 times this week, and there's nothing new to learn. Believe me, what Scott and I talked about this morning on that first video, it is compelling, it's interesting, it's useful, and is different than anything you've heard on any of the other times that Scott's been on my channel or anybody else's channel this week. But if you really want to hear some stuff that's different, then you want to watch the Brian Wang video that I did in the middle of the day. Now, you know about Brian. He's a bona fide futurist who has this amazing ability to predict the future and is actually rated nationally, internationally, as one of the top people in the world. He's like only wrong 3% or 4% of the time on the things that he has been challenged on. So he has come back and he's always thinking outside the box. His scientific brain just thinks different than my manufacturing brain or somebody else's clerical brain. So anyway, Brian Wang has very different things to say about the entire robotic revolution. Very interesting things. I encourage you to go back and look at that video as well. Now, I'm going to put those cards up later in the video, but you know, you can always just click on the channel and you can go right to my channel and you can find those videos quite easily by doing it that way. So anyway, this is Randy Kirk, by the way. And spoiler alert, let me tell you that both Brian and Scott agree with me that Tesla will make 100,000 of these Optimus robots in 2026 and that the profit will be around $60 billion. So that's a spoiler alert, but there's so much more to learn. Anyway, hit like, hit notify, hit subscribe. You're going to want to be reminded tomorrow morning. I've got a video coming up. What am I going to do tomorrow morning? Oh, I'm going to do my 2024 forecast. You're going to want to see that. I've got it all laid out. I think you'll see some definite surprises there. I've done a very, very conservative one. It's what I call the I think I call it Super Bear, the Super Bear version. And that one takes Troy Tesla's super bearish numbers, only 2,070,000 cars. I take a look at what that would mean. I would take a look at what that mean, even if margins don't get any better. Anyway, you want to take a look at that video tomorrow. I give 4 different versions, 4 different ways of looking at it, and I'd love to have you shoot holes in it. That'll be up tomorrow. That'll be before the games. And then after the games, I'll have my regular Sunday night show where we talk about all the financial stuff that's coming next week. All right. Now, then you want to buy the Cybertruck bottle openers and you want to join my Patreon. Please do those things. All right. Gigafactory Buffalo will get a $500 million computer. They'll be spending $500 million over the next 5 years, according to the governor of the state of New York. Elon says that the governor is correct and that this is a Dojo supercomputer, but that $500 million, well, obviously a large sum of money, is only equivalent to about 10,000 H100 systems from NVIDIA. So it's not that big a deal. Anyway, Tesla, he says, will spend more than that on NVIDIA hardware this year. The table stakes for being competitive in AI are at least several $billion per year at this point. So when you look at the 10 billion roughly that Tesla intends to use to do in terms of CapEx, well, actually, I think that was R&D. I'd have to look back. I think that's R&D. This probably falls under CapEx. Anyway, $2 billion a year is what he thinks he needs to spend just on AI in order to be in the game. So that's part of what you see happening right now with Tesla. All right, Whole Mars Blog says, that is at Whole Mars Blog on X, FSD Beta 12 is a major leap forward, but not quite ready to roll out to everyone, okay? This is very different than what you might have heard this week from him, okay? Despite significantly improved comfort, our tests found that FSD Beta 11, the one you guys and we are still driving around on, requires less intervention, but this is due to a number of obvious bugs that remain in FSD Beta 12. So my reading of this is he and about 100 other people, he'll say that in a minute, about 100 people total are out there driving this that are not employees. They've discovered, I don't know, a handful of bugs that make the Beta 12, version 12 is just not quite ready to go. He goes on to say, the rollout will continue in the coming weeks. Everyone will be able to try it on their own car very soon, in his opinion. Right now, it's only about 100 people, so don't feel left out if you don't have it. Yes, okay. Anyway, let's go on to the next story. We've got Model 3 sales in the U.S. looking pretty good. The new 3 Plus is looking good. Delivery dates on one of the versions has been extended another month. So people are buying that, but everybody is just looking out right now. When are we going to hear? They're watching that order page to see when the performance version becomes available. And the question is, everybody wants to know, is this going to be offered as a plaid or only as a ludicrous? And that is certainly interesting to me too. I suppose, I can't just buy one of these so that I can drive it once, but maybe somebody will buy one and put it on Turo and I'll get to drive it around that way. Anyway, China is stimulating their economy because it's continuing to buckle. Nothing is working. So there's a big stimulus going on right now. That stimulus is going to be too late really to help what I'm going to be talking about in a minute. When China has problems, it does affect the U.S. It just does. It doesn't affect it very much, not like the opposite, but it has an effect. Europe is also struggling, and that's having an effect. Fortunately, we've been able to do quite well in spite of those things, but China is now stimulating their economy. We'll see what impact that has. The other thing we have right now is those shipping rates. The Red Sea issues, where the Houthis are shooting weapons and flying drones and trying to disrupt the Red Sea traffic, shipping traffic, is having an impact. Why is it having an impact? Well, the insurance companies want to insure you, or they're going to jack up your insurance like crazy. So people are having to go around the Cape of Good Horn, around Africa in order to continue their trip. And that adds 14 days. Now, that's not a huge deal. There's obviously an extra expense. What's a huge deal is there's only so many containers and so many ships in the world. And there was a lot of surplus left over from this craziness we've just gone through on the supply chains. So there was a lot of surplus containers and about 10% surplus ships, but that is being eaten up and freight rates are going up dramatically. Now, that I don't think it's going to have a huge effect on the United States pricing. It's having a small effect right now on oil, but part of that effect on oil is because US reserves are down. We've finally had a couple of weeks of serious winter. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks on that. All right. From the Kobesi letter, again, the Kobesi letter, if you're not watching the Kobesi letter on X, you should be, but pay no attention to his analysis. Just pay attention to his stats. He's great at pulling in super good stats. All eyes are on the March Fed meeting as we kick off a huge week this week. That's the Fed is going to give its conversation. It's going to give us their decision, and then it's going to have the Fed Chairman Powell is going to speak on Wednesday afternoon. Now, it turns out, according to Kobesi, that on average, it's 8 months between the last Fed rate hike and the first Fed rate cut, okay? And that 8 months would be, we start looking at that as July 2023 was the last time they hiked, so that would make March 2024 8 months later. So I don't know, I guess he's trying to hint that he thinks that's what's going to happen. I'm hoping that he makes the decision based on PCE, based on Truflation, based on everything we know. It's time for him to make that decision. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit in a minute. Truflation is now under 2% for 26 straight days, sitting right about 1.85 for 26 days. This has got to, I mean, again, I have some problems with Truflation, but you got to look at the trend. Okay. I'm going to throw a theory out there for you to look at. I want you to shoot it full of holes, but I want you to just listen up to this idea. The third quarter, we had an over 5% increase in GDP. In the fourth quarter, we had a shocker at a 3.3% increase. Now, maybe when they do the revision, it won't really be 3.3% increase. It might drop. Then we have quarter one expected right now to be only a 0.08%, less than 1% increase. Now, this downward trend will result in what? Layoffs, uncertainty, people starting to put money, keep their hands in their pocket instead of spending money as they find out whether this is going to be long-term or not. And those kinds of decisions exacerbate the problem, right? It makes it worse in terms of the economy. And then all of that just becomes a flywheel, all right? So I could see quarter one may not even be a 0.1% increase. Maybe it's less than that. Maybe it's neutral. Maybe it's even slightly down. Then you get more layoffs. And by quarter two, we might be going underwater. And then quarter three could be even more underwater as you have this continuing, as I mentioned, flywheel idea. Well, then I'm saying that the Fed gets it and it drops 0.5 basis points in March and another 5 basis points in May. But of course, that'll be too late to help the second and third quarter. And then we'll start to see a recovery in quarter three, but maybe we're still underwater in quarter three and it's not till quarter four or even January of next year before we really start to see a recovery. What do you think about that theory? I don't think it's crazy. I'm not willing to predict it yet. I need more information. I need to see more things happening in terms of employment. I need to see more things happening in terms of expectations by the purchasing agents, et cetera. We'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. Also, the more information from these earnings reports in terms of the guidance that people are giving into the next quarter. All right, now then I am going to share my screen here. You know how that is always so much fun for me. Well, first of all, we have from Joe Tegmeyer, what we have here is his production ramp run rate expectation for 2024. And so you can see this is the first quarter where we are right now. You got the first quarter and then the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. You can see over here that by the end of the fourth quarter, he's showing a run rate of 110,000. So, of course, that doesn't mean you're going to make 100,000 in the year. It means the run rate actually passes the 100,000 in like the third month of the fourth quarter. So anyway, that's his run rate expectations. Now you'll notice that he also puts on here the expectations for 4680. and he's showing an inflection point. He's looking for an inflection point in the, it looks like approximately April 1st. He's looking for, or is that a little later? What am I thinking here? First quarter, second. Anyway, roughly April, May, he's looking for an inflection point where there will be the S curve will begin with regard to 4680s. Don't know why he thinks that, but that is how he's looking at things. And I think he, of course, maybe needs these 4680s in order to feed the Cybertruck ramp. So I just thought that was super interesting. If you'd like to take a screenshot, just pause and take a screenshot if you'd like to look at that in more detail later. Then also we have this story is we have the safety every quarter Tesla. Now this is from Inside EVs. Every quarter, I think, yes, every quarter Tesla releases an update to its vehicle safety report, revealing data for all four quarters of 2023. And so they do this voluntarily. Nobody requires them to do it. But what we see here, let's move it down to the chart. What we see here is the Inside EVs, what EV Insides was trying to say is that there isn't much of an improvement showing here. You're seeing about the same numbers going across, and you're actually seeing a little bit of a drop in 2023. And this is comparing FSD, how many accidents per million miles on full FSD, how many accidents per mile when you're just using various other levels of the auto drive on a Tesla. And it's also showing when you're not using any at all. And then it's showing what happens with cars that don't have other kind of cars. What's the overall national average? And this is the chart that shows it the best. And Inside EVs does go, they mentioned, look, we can't make, this is not apples to apples exactly, but you can see it's a dramatically safer vehicle to be driving with full FSD than it is to be driving a regular automobile that has none of these capabilities. What he says is you can't compare it apples for apples because the FSD drivers might be only using it on the highway. Some of them might only be using it on the highway. They might be turning it off in difficult situations. You have older cars, that are 10, 20 years old that don't have any kind of a driver assist on them that would be included in the general population of automobiles. But at the end of the day, there is no doubt you are better off to use any level of, first of all, you're better off to use a Tesla because they get the highest safety ratings in the world. You're not going to have any less or more accidents because you're in a Tesla. But then if you are in an accident, you are much better off to be in a Tesla because of their safety ratings. And then if each level that you go up in terms of these driver assists all the way to FSD, you're going to have less accidents. I think if I can find this real quick, without using autopilot technology, Tesla vehicles statistically note more accidents from 1 to 1.52 million miles driven per accident recorded instead of that's 1 to 1.5 compared to 5 million miles between accidents when you're on full FSD. Let's see, I'm sorry, per accident registered 23. When using autopilot technology, varied from 5.18 to 6.18 million. And so it's a tremendous difference to be using these various autopilot technologies. That's the main gist of the article. All right, I'm going to stop sharing and learn something today. If you did, please hit like, please hit subscribe and notify. As I mentioned earlier, I will put up those cards right now for the 2 videos earlier this morning about the Optimus and about robots in general, about the humanoids. Super amazing videos. I can't tell you enough how important it is, if you haven't seen both of those, to go back and check them out. If you don't have an hour and a half to watch both of them, put them on speed, put them on the faster rate, because there's no part of those that you don't want to see. They're both so outstanding. Again, nothing about me. It's all about Scott and Brian. Anyway, and then of course, I'd love to have you buy a Cybertruck bottle opener. You know, there's only 5 days left at the $20, no matter how many you buy rate. And then we've also got the hot special on the $10 Patreon. You get a Cybertruck bottle opener and one of the books on ebook. Okay, that's all I got for you today. It is always, and today especially, has been great talking to you.